Hey friends, welcome to the Very Occasional Podcast with Morgan Quaid. Now 100% gluten-free so you can eat as much as you like without feeling bloated and gassy. This episode features the indomitable Heath Amodio, writer, producer and co-founder of Hustle and Heart Films and Overlook Multimedia. You can find out more about Heath and his ongoing projects at hustleandheartfilms.com. Before we get onto the show, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast, because if I can get my channel to 500 subscribers, my barber is going to lend me his favorite comb. All right, welcome to the Very Occasional Podcast with Morgan Quaid. I'm joined today by Heath Amodio, writer, producer, and co-founder of Hustle and Heart Films and Overlook Multimedia. So first of all, Heath, thank you for coming and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for hitting me up on Twitter. I appreciate the offer. At first, I was like, well, this is obviously spam mail. And, so I was like, I better check on this guy before I start like giving my bank account information or whatever. But so I do appreciate it. This is the first time I've kind of been asked to do one of these without Colin by my side. So I'm fine.
Oh, there you go. So
I don't have my wingman with me, so we'll see how this goes.
You're solo. Sure. So just for future reference then, should I mention the Nigerian prince in the initial message I sent you, or is that a little too on the nose?
I mean, it might be a good cold open. Something we can kind of call back to later on in this interview. But it was great to hear from you, and I'm glad I'm doing this. So thank you.
Well, fantastic. It's great to have you here. So I will share with the viewers / listeners. So I actually found Heath, stalked him after reading The Heaths, which you can see in the poster behind, which is a series that's come out from Aftershock Comics. It's a great series, beautiful artwork, really, really cool story. Maybe we start with that as an entry point. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that and how the story came about?
Yeah, sure. I've always loved the AntiHero. Ever since like Young Guns, Emilio Estevez's version of
Right.
Kid. I've always wanted to tell a story kind of in that vein. And it's weird because I'm not a history buff at all. I used to just sleep through all those classes, literally. I got a D to pass in every one. But these characters are so engaging. To just give you a quick rundown, there's obviously Billy the Kid. He goes without saying. Lucky Luciano was one of the leaders of the Fine Families in New York City. He really organized the mob back in the day and made it what it is. Bumpy Johnson got out of prison to find Harlem being run by Italians and kind of went to war with Luciano to kind of free Harlem, which he ended up doing. So those two butt heads obviously in the comic because now they're kind of forced to work together. So we figured that'd be a fun dynamic. Sophia the Golden Hand is actually one of the greatest con artists to ever lived. She was a Russian woman who kind of did like the real life Robin Hood aspect things. Like she'd steal a bunch of diamonds and then she'd pass a little girl on the street and give her one. So she was a cool character that we definitely wanted to play around with, and her story, we kind of give a little bit of background on each character in the second chapter, so you kind of understand who you're dealing with. And the con that she pulls, that's a real con that she pulls in real life. So, brilliant woman. And then Lady G is like, we refer to her as like our Snake Eyes, right? Like G.I. Joe is a bunch of really cool characters, but Snake Eyes is above and beyond the coolest character. So Lady G was a real pirate queen who started out a prostitute, married a pirate king, and when he died at sea, she took over the entire fleet. And she's holding together like 5 different fleets of ships as a woman in the 1800s, and she just controlled the China seas. So she's amazing and unheard of, really. And it's like you think someone like that would be like in the zeitgeist and like part of pop culture, but she's not. She really isn't. I think the only film that's made for that character, so to speak, is a Chinese feature, which, you know, not a lot of people have gone and seen. So it's a lot of fun to kind of bring her to the forefront. And then they all go chase after Jack the Ripper to bring him back to hell. So, you know, we wanted to make sure, obviously, that the antagonist could live up to these 5 characters, and no one like the Ripper, right? So, we had a lot of fun with that one. I brought the idea to Cullen. He dug it. You know, we went through who should be in this cast, because, you know, we threw out names like Doc Hollywood and, you know, and stuff like that. Or Doc Holliday, sorry. And like that, because there's so many. Like, you know, you can go and do Bonnie and Clyde, right? But there's no redeeming qualities to those characters, really. You know, once someone kind of crossed a certain line, we didn't want to try to redeem that person. You know what I mean? There's so many different people that we can bring into a second volume, because there's so many anti-heroes throughout history that are really cool. And you know, hopefully there's more to come, but, you know, if not, we told a really good story that we're happy with and has a beginning, middle, and end, and, you know, hopefully satisfies readers, you know, when they pick it up.
Yeah, and it's for those interested, it's a really cracking story, and the artwork's amazing. It's just a really polished book, which is good. And it's the collected volume, which is it 4 issues in one, or
it's 5 actually? 5 in one,
yeah.
And Sammy Cavella, Jason Wardy, they crushed the art. We couldn't be happier with it. It was everything that Sammy turned in was just gorgeous. And then Simon on the lettering was great, obviously, to work with as well. That team does a lot together, the 3 of them, and it's always, you know, magnificent work. So we were hyped to be paired with them for sure. Hello, my name is Heath Amodio. Thank you for listening to the Very Occasional Podcast. Please like and subscribe, or I will take away your phone.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey in terms of writing or this whole sort of creative industry. Where did you get started? Where was your first foray into the industry?
It's funny because I was a book manager or a backroom manager at Barnes & Noble at the time when I first started kind of producing. A guy that used to be my lit agent, his name is Brendan Deneen. He was working for Macmillan Publishing at the time, and his bandwidth just couldn't handle the amount of titles that they have. So he gave me the opportunity to kind of take things out to the people in his Rolodex and build my own network in the meantime. And, help him get books landed at certain places, just as kind of like a way into seeing how production works and producing works. And while I was in the back room of Barnes & Noble, I came up with an idea for the Brooklyn Bridge, right? And how that story played out in real life, which is, again, weird, the history side of things. But it was very much like a Downton Abbey type project where you follow these Irish immigrants as they're building the bridge, and then you follow the Roebling family as they're actually engineering it. And there's so much, obviously I can't give away the whole story, but there's just a lot of amazing aspects to both sides of that tale. So, you know, I already started to build my own network. So I was like, let me see who I can get involved with this project. So I reached out to the representatives of, you know, some of my favorite TV writers and showrunners and stuff like that. And one of them was James Manos, who had developed Dexter for Showtime.
Oh, wow.
So I sent the project over to his rep and, you know, said, hey, I'd love to work with James on this, if it's even a possibility, et cetera. Remember, I'm a retail manager. Just doing And within an hour, he emails me back and says, can you get on the call? James wants to talk to you about this project. Now, all of a sudden, I have a call with a multi-Emmy winning writer about a project I just happened to take a shot at sending out and seeing if it could happen. So next thing you know, I'm in my car in the parking lot on the phone with James Manos, and he's so excited. He's having this amazing conversation about how much he loves the Brooklyn Bridge and you know and all of that. And the project kind of just came together over time, and he was great. We met for dinner, and it's just such an amazing learning experience. And it's really just because I put myself out there, right? Like, just took that shot. Things didn't end up moving. That's the nature of the business. Hollywood bats 200 on a good day. So, you kind of take each part of the process as a learning experience, and you can't be afraid to reach out to people and put yourself out there. Because, like, for example, I don't know, did you see Gotham, the show Gotham?
I did, yes. Yeah.
I just reached out to Ben McKenzie, who plays Commissioner Gordon, or Detective Gordon at the time. And I asked him if we could discuss, having a project together and working together. And he's like, yeah, sure. He's like, yeah, let's meet in the city and have breakfast or whatever. And he could not have been a nicer guy. Like, he spoke to me like we'd known each other for years. It was a very, very pleasant experience. Great guy. And I wish nothing but the best for him. But again, it was just because I wasn't afraid to put myself out there. And that's exactly how I met Cullen. I had an idea for a comic while I was working at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, let me just take a chance, because I wanted to really work with him. I love this stuff, Six Gun, and what he'd done with Deadpool at the time, and he was just starting to do the Harrow County stuff. So I was like, let me just shoot him in this email and see if he wants to even hear it. He wanted to hear it. He ended up liking it, and now we've been partners in Hustle and Heart since 2018. And the way that came around was creators kind of get the shaft when it comes to optioning their properties, right? Like, they option their book. Something may happen with it, something may not, but they usually end up getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the numbers and everything like that. So we wanted to kind of have a way to have a little bit more control in the creative process. So we started a production company. And then from the back room of Barnes & Noble, I helped develop 2 shows based on IP that we started working with. Neither one was Cullen's, but we started bringing in other IP just to show that we could do this. And we found a partner that had been established in the industry, has been around for a while. And right out of the gate, we ended up selling 2 shows. The same year we launched. So, and we didn't take that for granted. We know that's not how this industry works. None of what I've done is how this industry works. So I don't recommend going my route, but, one of the shows, actually, we ended up, Colin and I came up with another idea, and we just put it together in kind of like a deck, like a pitch deck. And we brought it out, and we ended up selling that, and then we sold our 3rd show the following year to Amazon, and then COVID hit, right? So everything, like, none of them have gone. Like I said, it's just the nature of the business. It's gut-wrenching, it's heartbreaking, but, if you don't have the fortitude or the perseverance to continue to do it, like, don't even bother starting, because you're going to fail more often than you succeed. But when you succeed, it makes everything worth it. Like, perfect example, back when I was a retail manager at another store, I used to reach out to Method Man's manager from Wu-Tang Clan, and I'd be like, hey, I'd love to work with Method Man. I've been such a fan since elementary school, just listening, and I don't mean to make him sound old, but I absolutely adore everything he does. I want to work with him. And she, to her credit, not knowing who I am and me having no right to even reach out to her, she was always cordial, always kind, always responded, always had a conversation with me. And that's not always the case. It's very rare, especially representation. But then I finally got to a point where I could actually make something happen. So I reached out to her again, and I was like, does Meth have any kind of project that he wants to work with in the animated space? Because I had formed a really good relationship with Powerhouse Animation, who does Castlevania for Netflix, and Blood of Zeus, I believe it was called. And she was like, yeah, he's had this passion project that's been in his head forever, right? So the next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Method Man talking about a project that's been in his head forever. Like, I could have retired that day,
Yeah.
I'm happy with everything that I've done to this point. And, you know, it all stems from just not being afraid to put yourself out there and, you know, and understand that these people that you're reaching out to, they're just people, right? Like, but if you don't take that chance, if you don't seize that opportunity, then it was all, you know, you've never given yourself the chance to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? It all comes down. Yeah. Like, you can't ever count on anyone else. Like, you're a writer, right? So you understand that there's that double-edged sword to trying to find representation, because an agent doesn't want to take you on unless you've got some heat, but you can't get some heat unless you've sold something.
Yep.
Sell anything for the most part without some kind of representation, unless you're willing to put it on your own shoulders and hustle and put yourself out there and reach out to the people. And, you know, so now we're in a position where we're trying to find the right project with the Rocks company, $7, and, you know, John Krasinski's company, you know, and it's because we took ourselves seriously, right? We hustle. Cullen is obviously a huge name, and I don't take that for granted. And he's been an amazing person to work with all along, right? And he put a lot of his trust in me and his faith in me, and, you know, hopefully we've succeeded, you know, to this point. Like, for example, I don't know if you saw CBR yesterday, but we just put out an announcement that we're going to be doing a number of books with Source Point Books, including Nightwalkers, which, you know, comes out in January. There's some sample art on CBR, but we're doing like a New York Comic Con exclusive cover for that, which we're really excited about. And nice. Project, it's also in collaboration with producer Angus McClune and Vertigo Entertainment. And Vertigo did It Chapters 1 and 2 and Doctor Sleep, and, you know, they're amazing. And as far as horror goes right now, they're at the top of the list. You know what I mean? So we're really excited about that project, and it's Cullen's original take on like a timeless horror trope. So, you know, and I'm not being hyperbolic, and this is in the article. It's one of his best horror stories to date. I feel like it's definitely setting up like a whole universe that we want to play in. So we're really excited about that. But that's just one of several projects we'll be doing with Source Point. And again, it's just because we put ourselves out there and said, let's do this, reach out to people we want to work with, and, you know, try to make that thing happen. And, you know, we've been fortunate to this point.
The village burns, set to the torch by wicked men in strange masks. He has no time for grief or sorrow. The blood of his kin calls out and must be answered. Feeling a little down? Tired of reading the same old books again and again? Looking for something different? Why not head over to the comics shop now and pick yourself up some freshly inked inspiration?
So tell us a little bit more about the producer side of things. What is that role?
You
see it.
There's different versions, right? And, you know, I don't need to necessarily get into the nitty gritty of every single one, but like the line producers, like, they're on the ground, right? They're the ones that's making sure they put together the budget. They make sure that everything works within that budget. Like, they're completely necessary to any kind of project.
Right.
I'm more a creative producer, right? Like, let's say there's a book that we're doing. We'll use Heathens as an example, right? So I would take Heathens. We understand where the story is going to be going, but I would take that to a TV showrunner, right? Someone that's working on television now. It doesn't have to be a showrunner. We've used staff writers as well. That's the one that we sold to Amazon was with a staff writer. So as long as they can write and write well, what I would do is I would reach out to people that make sense for the project, things that they've done in the past, whatever the credits might be. Have a conversation with them, make sure we gel, right? And then ask them for a take. What's your take on this project? And if their take is really cool and dynamic, we then get into developing that creatively. We put together, this is what it would look like over seasons 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Then put that into a pitch deck and work out a pitch. And when you have that, then you're ready to start reaching out to executives at buyers. Showtime, Amazon, CW, Netflix. Hey, we'd like to set a pitch for this project. This is what it is. Normally you can get a pitch once you've obviously done some things. It's really, I don't know. At first, it wasn't me making those calls. It was seasoned veterans that we partnered with because I understood that I'm not going to get in these rooms cold. So I went after people that had a track record in the feature space and were trying to get into TV and said, hey, let's collaborate. I'll bring the projects. You bring the experience and let's go and sell these. And it worked out. I mean, that's why we sold 3 projects almost right away. So I highly recommend working with people that are veterans and know what they're doing. And we have a very strict no a-hole policy. So you want it, like, the thing is, like, this is supposed to be a very enjoyable job, right? Like, heartbreaking at times, but very enjoyable. Like, I've worked retail my whole life. This isn't that, right? You're not bringing it back to make some corporation millions of dollars. So you're doing this for yourself. So you want it to be enjoyable. You don't want to work with people that make it miserable. So that's a very strict rule that we have. But so then you're getting into these rooms and you're pitching, and it's not my favorite part because you're trying to sell yourself in that room, and you go on 20 of these in a week, or whatever that might look like. But once you sell a project, then you can start working around, okay, now what's this pilot script look like? And if you're working with a really collaborative writer, there's some back and forth, right? There's some notes, there's some changes and stuff like that. It hasn't always been the experience, but primarily that's how you would want it to go. But that's what the creative producer does. From day one, you're helping to mold what that story is going to look like on television. And then there's producers that are just strictly financing and just know those people, and they're absolutely vital because that's the hardest world to kind of crack. Is like, you can meet rich people, doesn't mean this is a space they want to play in, right? So you have producers that have spent 20 years just making networking within that. So it's kind of like line producers, the ground level. You got some creative producing and stuff like that, and then you've got financiers. And there's a few spots in between, but that's mostly what a producer is. Like, I'm a creative producer, Colin is a creative producer, writer, and then our buddy Angus that we just started another separate entity with, and we can get into that. He's more of that hands-on, let's make this happen producer. Like, let's bring in the proper pieces, and he's coming to Go Entertainment to join with us and do his own thing as well on the side. So, but he's the one that has all those connections, whether it be financiers or, to kind of bring all those pieces together. So, everyone's vital. You can't do you can't do one without the other. You know what I mean? So, but those are different levels of producers for the most part.
So, is there something, I mean, there's probably a few things, but is there a failure that you've gone through that's really been instructional for you or helped you, or something that you're willing to share that's really kind of, you've learned a lesson from that and thought, okay, from now on, this is the direction I'm heading in?
I mean, there's a little bit, you learn a little bit from each one, right? Like the Manos project, that was me having literally no idea what I was doing. And putting together a project and trying to understand the pieces completely from an outside perspective. That one hurt because it was my first, right? And everything seemed to be going so easy. Like, we had a major production company involved, and everything seemed like it was like, I can do this easily. This is a thing that happens, right? Like, it's just that was a breeze. Let me do the next one. And then out of nowhere, it just all crumbled to pieces. And, you know, like, I still can't fathom it at times when I think about it. And, like, that's rough, right? And then I had reached out to actress Emmanuel Shrieky, who we're now friends. This is like 10, 15 years ago. I reached out to her on Twitter and said, hey, I have this script that I think you'd be great for. And for whatever reason, she read it. And if you're not familiar with who she is, she plays Lois, or Lana Lang now on Superman and Lois.
Oh, what? Okay, cool. Yeah.
But she's amazing. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact she's Canadian, is just inherently nicer than us. But, you know, she's been, from day one, she's been unbelievable. Like, she read my script when she had absolutely no reason to. You know, I'm just some random guy on Twitter. She ended up liking it quite a bit, and wanted to do it. So, you know, this is even before the Manos thing. So I went out and I found a director that had done a short film, and I'm not going to go too into it because I'm not going to speak highly about them. But and then M brought in a producer that she was friends with and had a track record of, you know, getting greenlit films that for like small budgets, which this was. It's very like a Southern noir story, and he's recently passed, so you know that was unfortunate. But so I handpicked the director, so that's on me, right? But she had literally won an award for her short film, had an Academy Award winning actress in it. So I was like, you know, the fact that this director was involved, I was over the moon, right? I've got I've got this producer, I've got this director. So then we sit down, and I'm brand new to this entire process, and it's my screenplay, and everyone seemed to love it by page 5, right? So we sit down, and then she's like, well, we need to change this and this and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, this must be part of the process, right? And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say 13 rewrites later, like, I hate this script. Yeah. I don't care if this happens. I hate my own story, right?
Oh, man.
It was like, and it was stupid little tweaks that just didn't make sense and kind of started to feel like, are we just doing this because they want a writer credit as well as the credit? And that's, you know, because WGA has certain rules with that stuff. And it's like, this isn't improving the story. And I just stopped. Like, I was like, I can't. The producer didn't like the newer version, right? So I was like, you know what? This thing's just gonna fall apart, and it did. But Em and I have remained friends, and you know, we would still love to do that film. And actually, Joe Lansdale, who's become a friend and I look up to, he's amazing, right? The stuff that he writes is unbelievable. Happen Leonard's one of my favorite series of all time. His son Heath actually came in and kind of helped me regroup the script from all these changes to find what it was originally, and then improve upon that. And he was great to work with, and the script definitely became better and stronger. And like I said, it's still something that we want to do. But that was heart-wrenching because that was my own fault, right? Like, I brought in this person thinking it was going to be the perfect opportunity to make this feature, and then it ended up being an complete nightmare of a working experience. You know, so as far as failures go, like, I've had a fair amount in this industry, and you know, sometimes I'm like, why do I continue to do this, right? It is fun, and you get the Method Man moments, and you get the Ben moments, and you get, like, you know, those are things that you're never going to forget, and it makes the failures softer a little bit, I guess you could say. Like, they're a little more manageable, and you can kind of swallow them a little bit easier when you've got the other aspects of things, like writing a comic book with Colin Bunn, right? Which we've done several of. Like, there are books that are in the pipeline from Oni Press that haven't come out yet that, you know, are starting to drop. My first one comes out next January from them. So, you know, we have a lot on the horizon that we're excited about. And if I quit because of all of the projects that didn't work out, like, none of this would be happening right now. So
yeah.
that's the hardest part for sure.
So tell us a little bit about Overlook Multimedia, what it's about, maybe how it's a bit different to Hustle and Heart.
Angus, we've been working on a couple projects together while he was at Vertigo as a director of development over there, and we just hit it off. He's a great guy. We really enjoy collaborating, and I've been trying to do this process that kind of streamlines Hollywood, right? Because, like I said, I'm coming from an outsider, right? Like, I live in New York. I'm not in, quote unquote, in the industry. So I'm able to kind of think outside the box, and they've been doing the same thing for so long, right? Like, and some places are great at it, right? And you get phenomenal shows. You get things like Ozark and Succession and, unbelievable stories, right? Yellowstone, things like that. Some executives are just brilliant. And, I'm fortunate to know several of them. But with all, like, the entire process, like I told you, can take 12 to 18 months. And that's just trying to get someone to work with Hustle and Heart on a project. Like, that's trying to bring in just another producer that has a name and makes it that much more appetizing to an Amazon or an Apple or someone like that. So then you start developing it with them, and you're looking at, now you're 2 years out on this same project and all this other stuff. So we had this idea that there had to be a better way to do that, right? So we're going directly to these places and saying, look, we want to work with you. Whatever we can do to make it happen, let's go. Like, we'll work with showrunners right from day one, or directors right from day one, and we'll come up with an idea, right? And because we're so passionate and love comic books so much, we're like, let's do this as a comic book first. Let's establish this story. Let's build out this world, and and make a really kick-ass series first and foremost. And anything else that comes out of that is just gravy, right? Like, but first and foremost, like, we're working with a showrunner that we're really big fans of, and has a bunch of TV shows that we absolutely adore, and we're kind of bringing them into the space that we know we can excel at, especially some Cullen, right? And saying, let's just tell a great story here first. Let's maybe this series goes on for a while. Maybe it runs as long as Walking Dead, and we're just telling a really great story. And if that's all it ever is, so be it, right? Because we love this medium and we want this to succeed. And that's stuff that we're going to be doing with SourcePoint and maybe other publishers in the future. And then if it happens to work out in another medium, then great, right? Because now we already have this excellent showrunner, and he can go take it to networks he has friends with or has done work with, and maybe it helps us get over those hurdles that Hollywood usually places in front of projects, because there's just so many steps along the way. So Overlook is really about, let's make some amazing comics, right? Let's tell some amazing stories, start building out our own universes and stuff like that, and just have a lot of fun with that. Like a project didn't sell for TV that we may have developed before. Let's just do it as a comic because we love the story. Right? So that's what we're trying to do with Overlook Multimedia. And it's multimedia because, Angus has had a bunch of success in the podcasting space as far as scripted shows, and, Colin obviously excels in the comic book industry, and and we've done some things with pros as well. So we want to be able to play in all these spaces, and obviously SourcePoint gives us access to doing tabletop games and turning these comics into tabletop, which we're really excited about as well. So we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves to one form of media. We want to be able to have access to all of them and collaborate with people we're really big fans of. Like, for example, we are talking to Peter Dinklage's executive, right? Like, we'd love to work with Peter. Like, that would be amazing to work on a project together with him. And hopefully we can find something that makes sense, right? And we can do it as a comic book together with him and his executives involved creatively and having their hands in the process. And let's see what we can do in that space. And then if that's all it is an amazing comic, I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So especially if I have any kind of involvement in creating the world for that, you know, and then anything beyond that, outstanding. But you know, the company is kind of an homage to The Shining, to Stephen King's Shining. It's called Overlook, you know, for that reason. You know, we're just all big fans of horror and sci-fi, and especially grounded stuff like that. Like, that's probably what we're going to try to focus on at first. But you know, we're having a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
as long as you're doing this and you're having fun, you can continue to do it, right? Like, if it starts becoming tedious or starts becoming like a 9-to-5 job that you hate even waking up to do, like, then it's time to step away. But you know, we're hoping Overlook is going to be a lot of fun, and the books that we're doing with Source Point, you know, those are the first of hopefully many that we can do. Because one of the other projects that's mentioned in the presser is Copycat, which we're doing not only with Source Point, but that's also a collaboration with Todd Garner's Broken Road Pictures. And
Okay.
he used to be the president of like Disney and Sony, and you know, he had this really cool idea for a story, but it was just a concept, right? So I wanted to work with him anyway, so we were already discussing that, and he brought us this project and allowed Colin and I to kind of flesh it out and make it into something tangible. And you know, now we're doing a really cool comic book about that, you know. And again, you know, if that's all it is a really great, I might be biased about great because I'm writing it, but if it's, you know, if it's just a really cool 3-issue series, then that's what it is. You know what I mean? And that's amazing. And if it's something that Todd can then take and run with and do something else with, then even better. But, you know, I'm just having fun writing the thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. Yeah, it's one of the things sometimes we forget is that you're actually allowed to do this stuff. You're allowed to play in the space with all these cool ideas and develop things. And even though a bunch don't make it, it's pretty cool that we live in a world where we can actually do this sort of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, we just did our first short film. Colin and I wrote our first short film. It's on YouTube. And the guys that we collaborated with to make it, I worked with one of them on overnights at Walmart, right? And
wow.
He started his own production company. It's local. It's really small. It's 2 guys, really, Pop Film. And the guy that's the director, he didn't go to school for it or anything. He went and got the equipment and taught himself how to direct. And if you watch that short film, there's no way you think that was made for under $1,000. It's just the quality of these guys turned out, you know, based around Colin and my script, like, it's unbelievable. We're really proud of it. And, you know, Colin was able to premiere it at a Comic-Con out in Missouri in June. And, you know, it's gotten a lot of great reviews, and we're really proud of it. It's at around 8,000 views or something like that. But, you know, it's like 20 minutes. It's pretty much a full 3-arc story, right? So,
yeah.
And we couldn't be happier with the quality. And then what was also really cool was I came up with the idea of having Colin's son Roman do the end credits because he's a violinist. And
nice. 14
years old, he crushed it.
A
lot of people love what he did, and from what I've heard, you know, he got a lot of great questions at the premiere, which is really cool. And you know, that was a fun experience, and we plan on doing a lot more with Pop Films in the horror space. You know, obviously we'd probably like to crowdfund the next one and get a bigger budget. A bigger budget. You know, that one, like I said, was under 1,000, and the mask was half of that. So, you know, we definitely went all out with the look of the witch in it. But that was a lot of fun. But again, the entire point of that story was to say, now you can do it on your own, right?
Yeah,
you don't have to rely on anyone. You just have to actually say, well, I want to do this, and then go do it, right? Like, money is probably the biggest hindrance for most people. You know, but if you're able to find people that are just as hungry and just as passionate about trying to do this, whatever that is, and they have access to things that can help you collaborate and make that thing successful, then, you know, you got to seek those people out. and there's so many different places to find these people now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, especially like local areas, just ask around. Like if you have a school of that focuses on the arts, go to them and, you know, and be like, you know, who's doing what. And I heard one great piece of advice was like going to art school or film school, like premieres where students are doing short films and stuff like that. Like they're not going to be expecting a massive budget to do something, right? They just want to do something, put their name on it, put their stamp on it, get it out there, get their credit on IMDb, you know, so go find that person. Don't be a dick. And then, you know, try to make that happen, is the best thing I can say.
All right, so we're moving to the worst pitch idea. Now, this is a first because you're someone that has extensive experience at pitches, whereas most of my guests have not done this on a professional level. So it's really just an idea. So the idea is pretty simple. We come up with an idea off the cuff that is just the dumbest thing you could possibly pitch. I'll have an idea, you have an idea, and then we see which one is truly the worstest.
You know, I actually like I said, the best thing about comedy is the callback, right? So I love the idea of the Nigerian prince in the DM, right? But so you would get that DM on Twitter from said Nigerian prince. It doesn't have to be Nigerian, obviously. You can be anywhere. It's just that's probably the most notable version of those spam mails. But what if it's real, right? What if it's look? I have been kidnapped, and if you send however much money to my grandmother, I can be freed. They need some kind of, and I reached out to the first person my Twitter brought up that had a DM that I could actually email and wasn't closed off. This isn't spam. I don't know how to make you believe that. Like, at least tweet me back your number, and I'll get it to my grandmother somehow, or you know, some way. You're in touch with the grandmother, and now you're in this whole blood diamond situation where you got to, you know, you have to get in touch with the grandmother, get to Nigeria somehow, and now you're like, you know, you're pot committed, right? You're committed to this guy out of whatever situation he's in. So you somehow end up over there, and you're just a regular 9-to-5 guy that has literally nothing in your savings, right? So you're selling off stuff on eBay as you're over there, just trying to raise the funds to get this guy out. And now, like, you're best friends with the grandmother, and you got all this action because somebody doesn't want him out. So, you know, I don't know if that's bad. It's actually
I don't think that's that bad. I think it's got legs, that one. Well, I'm confident that my idea will be far, far, far worse than this. Far, far worse, because that one is a decent idea.
We'll see if we can turn it around when you're done.
All right. Very simple. Very, very simple idea. Normally I just grab an animal and an object and try and jam them together. But this one's a little bit different. So essentially the premise is Breaking Bad in reverse. An experienced drug dealer that tries to go legit as a high school science teacher. I want to give up the money and the crime and all of that sort of stuff. And I can see by the look on your face already, you're thinking this is the worst idea I've ever.
Not at all. I've already turned it into a series. Are you kidding me? All it takes is one kid in the class to be someone that he dealt to before, and that kid wants to learn the ropes of how to deal drugs, and this guy just does not want to get involved. But now, not only is that kid on him about it, right now, he may have let it slip to the wrong person. Now the cops are thinking about who this teacher used to be and where did he come from and who's teaching our freaking kids, right? Then you got to deal with the school board and all that stuff. Him trying to keep his job. I'm not that guy anymore. Like, you got to show, man. That's not a bad pitch.
It's actually quite hard to come up with a pitch that is all terrible. There's a nugget of something in most things.
The thing now that instantly kills anything is if you go to racial stereotypes or things like that.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you're not going to go and do like, and this is awful, but it's completely comedic, you know, an Asian math teacher who's really good at math, and that's your pitch, and you start and you open with that, and you're like, no, like that you can't narrow one person down and one race down to the one thing that everyone jokes about them being great at, right? Like that's what kills the script now, especially in Hollywood now. Like it's very woke, and I take great honor and gratitude in the fact that the 3 projects that we sold were with all Black creators, and it wasn't that we sought that out. It's that it made sense for the projects, right? Like the IP that we were working with involved Black characters. Right? Yeah. So you shouldn't have a 40-year-old white man come in and tell that story, right? It happens. Yeah. And as a writer, we can speak if you're any good and honest about it, and you're willing to be open to listening to these characters' voices and trying to honestly tell their stories. Anyone can write anything if you're good at it, right? Like I think I write women really well. I obviously am not a woman, right? But I grew up with a really strong mother, and I have a lot of female friends that I listen to them when they talk to me, and I try to go in and I try to do right by them, right? Yeah. Like if you're looking at writing these characters and you want to pay honor to people that you actually know and care about, like you can speak truthfully to these characters and not boil them down to these stereotypical like token characters that you just need to fit into a story, right? Yeah. But Hollywood, and it goes for all industries really right now, they really want the voices to suit those characters, and that's fine. It makes for better storytelling, right? Like if you want someone to write about Chinese heritage and how they deal with dragons and how they're basically their gods, right? You shouldn't go to a white guy that lives in Austin, Texas to write that, right? I don't care how long you studied Chinese lore. Like, at least the thing is, and people don't take advantage of it, if you want to tell that story, find someone that can speak to it truthfully and honestly. Yeah, right? Yeah. One script I wrote, it features a gay sheriff that comes out as gay. He has a wife. He has a son. He's a sheriff in a deep South county. Yeah. Right? And he finally meets a guy that makes him want to live his real life. Yeah. Okay, so now it's like, how does he hold on to that family dynamic? How does the entire county's kind of turned against him? Not only because he's gay, like that's the obvious thing, but they feel kind of betrayed because he lied to them.
He wasn't honest. Yeah.
But he didn't, right? Like it's not like he wasn't trying to like fabricate his life to just to suit what he needed to work out, but it's just he didn't feel like he could or necessarily knew that route, right? But I'm not gay, so I was like, okay, I like this story, I really love this story, but it should also be told from a voice that can speak to it honestly, right? So there was a point where a producer was involved that did grow up gay, obviously in the closet in the deep South, and spoke to him, and then it becomes a more authentic story, right? Because now when you turn that story around and then you can work back and forth and collaborate with this person and you dive in deeper into what's in that mindset, it becomes a more honest story, which everybody wants to see. But that's, I think that's a long ass tangent, but I think, that's where we're at now. And what makes a good pitch is you got to be honest with what you're trying to make, right? You can love something, but if it's not coming across as authentic or true to what you're trying to convey, it's going to die on the vine. Like there's no interest whatsoever. Yeah. There be comics, TV, film. No one wants to hear that anymore, right? Yeah. So I think that's what it is. That if you love a story and you can be honest about it, you can pitch anything. You can take the worst idea and sprinkle in a few things and just make it great. And that's why I love collaborating. I love collaborating with Colin. I love collaborating with Angus. And, anyone else I want to work with, like TikTokers, I've worked with a couple. right? And I go to them because they know what they're talking about and they excel at that. And I think I can bring something to it and elevate it, but it always has to be their voice that's at the top, right? Because they're the ones speaking authentically. So if I, for example, perfect example, if I try to tell a story about being a fertilizer child, you know what I mean? Like, that's how you were born. Fertilization. And how corrupt that industry is, I can't speak to that honestly, and that story is never going to be any good. I can do a bunch of research on it, and I sound like I have an MD on it, but I can never speak authentically to the emotions of what that person's going through when they find out that they have the same father as 50 other people. Yeah. But this comedian Laura High, who blew me away because of her TikTok stand-ups, she is that, and she lives that, and she can speak to that. And I had the barest idea of how to turn that into a story, like a sitcom. Yeah. And I went to her and I was like, look, this is all I'm bringing to the table. The rest is you. But I think what you're doing can work with this if we do it right. And, you know, it's a really exciting project. But because I went into it knowing my limitations around the subject matter, right? And trying to seek out collaboration with someone that's really, really good at what they're doing. So there's a lot of that. Like, if you have a story that you as a writer know you want to tell, but there's somebody, whether it be someone that's amazing at Native American lore, right? And you really love that space. You really want to tell a story there. Go seek that person out, right? There are to teach at colleges and stuff like that. You know, they want to tell those stories. They've made an entire life out of it. So go to the person, say, look, this is my idea. Will this work, first of all, respectfully? And if it will, now you've got a collaboration going on. It's going to make an amazing project together. And it could have started out as the worst pitch, right? But because you're in that piece that knows what they're talking about, now it's something that's magnificent. And, you know, that can work out anytime.
All right, so here we go. Rapid fire questions.
All right.
So we will start with the first one, the perennial question: Star Wars or Star Trek? You can only choose one.
Original, I would go Star Wars, but the more recent stuff, I think Star Trek's kicking its ass, to be honest with you.
Nice. I don't want to bias this either way, but that is the correct answer. Well done, sir, because everyone just defaults to Star Wars. Yeah, some of the newer stuff is amazing as well. But yeah, anyway, thank you. That was a very good answer. All right, so a future world, the far distant future, let's say 2024. The world has changed. Everyone's body is just completely cleansed of all ink whatsoever. Everyone has to get one tattoo. You can only choose one design. What is that tattoo? Oh, and they have to as well. So what is that tattoo and where do you get it?
I mean, it's probably lame, but you know, it would just be my mother again, which I already have on my arm.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Other way. There we go. Oh,
there you go. Yeah.
Oh, wow. With is Angel Wings as well?
Yeah, it's her. This is really difficult.
There we go. Her, cool.
Rising up out of a wheelchair. She passed from ALS.
Right.
So in the end, she was wheelchair bound. It's a horrible disease. Your mental faculties are there all along. Like, she could still, right up to the end, she could rattle off my social security number, my sister's social security number, like, you know, bank account numbers, all that stuff. But like, you're literally trapped in a prison of your own body, up to the end. So, I mean, you know, it's not Daredevil or anything like that. I think if I was gonna go just a pop culture tattoo, it would be Taskmaster, and not the MCU Taskmaster where they didn't use the right mask. It'd be the skull. I just love the character. Like, if I could write for Marvel, that would be the first character I would write.
Right. Okay. Cool. Very good. I think, you know, a tattoo of your mum, that's the way to go. It's unique. It's yours. You own it. That's great.
And I put it side because it's mine. It's not for everyone else.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I prefer that version than the pop culture version. Okay, so which of your heroes would you most hate to meet in person or fear to meet in person?
It'd probably be Tom Hanks. Only because I have him on such a pedestal. You know what I mean? Like when all the Meet Street stuff was happening, and you start seeing all these actors that you looked up to, like Kevin Spacey, and and I don't need to go down the whole list, but you start these people that you have high up on these pedestals, and they just start falling left and right. Like the whole time, I was like, please God, nothing with Tom Hanks. Like as a New York Yankee fan, and everybody's coming out is on steroids, you're like, no, Derek Jeter, no. Oh, you were on steroids. You only weighed 110 pounds, so odds are you weren't. But you don't want to hear these things about your biggest, I guess, for lack of a better term, they're gods at what they do. And people keep passing away that are on my bucket list that I want to work with, and I would just obviously I want to meet him, even if it's just to talk about Band of Brothers for 8 hours, because I love that series. But if I met him and found out he was an a-hole, I would be very, very disappointed. And I don't think it would be the case, obviously. And you probably do the same thing for Denzel. But yeah, those two guys.
Those two. Very cool. All right. So a fictional death that you've had to deal with, either from film or TV or anything like that hit you really hard. Or from a novel or anything like that.
I'd probably have to say it's still Charlie. Right? It's not Penny's boat from Lost.
Right.
That moment, like, because the thing about that character was his arc was so phenomenal. Right? He went from this. He was this guy that just was passionate about music and can literally just sit at a piano all day and be absolutely content with that. To then his brother dragging him into this world of drugs and him losing himself in that, and then kind of losing his love of music, to then finding that again, right? And finding his ability and kind of taking in this family of Claire and her daughter, or son, and then he has this amazing arc, and then he's dead, and he died sacrificing himself for Desmond, who was my another beloved character. And just that whole the build up to it, his character arc, they didn't feel like they shortchanged him at all. And I'm one of those guys that I'll bawl at. Yeah, like I'll cry. I get so invested in these characters that I'm not ashamed to admit I bawl my eyes out. Like if I need a good cry, I'll watch like John Q, where Denzel intends on killing himself to give his son his heart. That's unbelievable. And like Man on Fire is my favorite movie all time, because at the end he sacrifices himself for Dakota Fanning's character. And you're like, those are movies. Like, I want to be moved emotionally. I either want to laugh until I'm crying, or I want to like just be bawling crying, because like, these stories move me that much.
All right, so you're allowed to pass one toy from your childhood onto your children. What is that toy?
Wow, I had so many G.I. Joes that I don't even know where they went. But I think those are probably like the greatest created toys. Like the quality now you think would be so much better, but it's just not. Like,
it's not. No.
They would have those little rubber bands inside that would eventually snap, and then your G.I. Joe's in like 6 different pieces, right? But it usually took a long time for that to happen, and it usually only happened because you were playing with them all the time. And that's probably where my first foray into writing and filmmaking happened, because I was playing out scenes with all these G.I. Joes. Like, my parents would walk in and I got a full-blown movie going on, right? Like, like there's dialogue. There's actual dialogue. And they're going it's not just pow, pow, bang, bang. It's like, what do you mean quick kick, betrayed us to the Cobras, and deep level stuff. So, if I still had them, it would probably be them. But to be completely honest with you, it would probably be, again, it's corny, but it'd probably be a book first and foremost, like something like weird stuff that I really enjoyed as a kid, like Pippi Longstocking. Like, why am I liking this book?
Oh, wow.
But I really enjoyed it. Or,
yeah.
My aunt gave me Stephen King's It at like age 14, and I've read it probably 20 times since. It's like Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory, where I have to own every version of it.
Yeah.
But something like that. So as far as the toys, it'd definitely be the G.I. Joes. But as far as things that I have like an emotional attachment to, it would definitely be like a Pippi Longstocking or a Hardy Boys collection or something along those lines. Judy Blume, Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing. Like, I must have read that book till it fell apart. Stuff like that. Okay.
Final rapid fire question.
All right.
The distant future, somehow you're transported a little way ahead. All houses, people still work, they still play, they still do all that sort of stuff, but all houses have a servant race that essentially, cooks for us, cleans, does all of that sort of stuff. But you have a choice between all of humanity going one way or the other. One way is robots, AI, that kind of thing. The other way is demonic servants of some kind, spirits, creatures, that sort of thing. You have to pick which one do you go for. Each of them with pros and cons about whether or not they may or may not turn on the human race.
Yeah, it's rough because is the AI transient? You know what I mean? Like, can they...
they're both aware. I'll put it that way. So they're both self-aware.
Okay, I'd probably go with the demons just because they deserve it, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they want to come to me and be like, I'd like a chance at redemption and not be doing this housework, this house labor, then that's a discussion to be had. But I think if they're a demon, they got there for a reason, right? So I have no problem with them cleaning the bathroom or, washing the dishes or whatever that may be. I understand every night I'd have to worry about them over my bed at my throat. So there probably have to be some kind of like rules. But I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be them, only because they've earned it.
Fair point. The machines are yet to earn their place in.
Yeah, although they hadn't turned on you yet, right? Like, so I mean, there's always that threat, but they haven't done it yet. So and you start falling back to robots you've loved in the past. Like, can I treat R2-D2 like that? I couldn't do that. He's like that's true. He's like a little chihuahua, right? Like, you want to pet this machine. It's just, you couldn't do that to an R2-D2. Like, but I could do that to a Lucifer or someone like that.
Fair enough. No, that's a good answer. So thank you very much, Heath, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you, learning a little bit more about the creative industry and film and the producer's role and all that sort of stuff. So thank you very, very much for joining us here today.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't ramble on too badly. Once I start going, I seem to not know how to stop. So
that's what editing is for. Editing will solve everything. We can do as many as you want with a limit of 3. So
no pressure at all.
No pressure at all. Particularly for our younger viewers, actually all of us at the moment, that would be horrific.
That would be devastating.
All right, I'll pop out, but I'm still going to be here. Here we go.
Very occasional podcast, right?
That's correct. Yes, the very occasional podcast.
All right.
Oh, I can believe it.
It's absurd.
That is, yeah.
As he does this on his telephone.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this is not rapid fire in any way, shape, or form.
Well, they're rapid fire questions. They're not necessarily rapid fire answers. So,
All right,
so
okay.
it's fine.
All right.
I just need to ask them quickly. That's all. That's all that's required.
Okay.